Richie, thank you for teaching me Tai Chi with Rosemary. It was very exciting. It's the first time I've ever done Tai Chi, ever. Tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, your hobbies, what you like doing.
Okay. I'm Richie Way, born in 1938, which makes me 82. I was born in Hawera, Taranaki, lived on a dairy farm.
Wow.
Milk cows, night and morning, 7 days a week, every day a month, 9 months a year, and I got fed up with the routine of milking cows, so I determined that I would become an engineer. And so I went to Wellington to the Woburn Railway Workshops as an apprentice. In those days, apprenticeships were 5 years, and I worked there for 6 years. 5 years as an apprentice and 1 year as a tradesman. And there I met a young man called Barry Martin. He was from Holland, and he was, I guess if he's still alive, he'd be in his 90s now.
Wow.
But he introduced me to Jesus and came to the place where I was living at the time, and we knelt down and I gave my heart to Jesus. I continued working at the railways, which wasn't in the workshops, railway workshops, which wasn't to my advantage as a Christian, because none of these fellows were Christians. Well, I knew one who was, but he worked on the lathes, and they swore and told dirty stories and everything like that, and I could swear along with the best of them. He planted a seed in my heart that grew, Barry did, planted a seed in my heart that grew and eventually squeezed out these other things out of my life.
That is very cool. And so what are some of the hobbies that you like? Because I can see that your garden is alive and thriving. What do you obviously like gardening?
Yes. Rosemary and I love gardening. We grow a lot of our own vegetables, cabbages and silver beet, spinach, passion fruit, and fruit like grapes, black grapes, oranges, lemons, limes, Japanese plums. Yeah.
A plethora of options.
Yeah, quite a lot.
We're talking this week about the value of purity. So
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you, what does purity look like for you? What is your understanding of it?
It looks pretty scary, Jordan. Purity, I looked it up in the concordance, and it has quite a few synonyms. Purity can be holiness, righteousness, and we're told in Hebrews chapter 12 that without purity, without righteousness, no man will see the Lord. And I thought, whoopee. That means, where does that leave me? But then I read in 2 Corinthians 5:21, where Jesus on the cross offered us his perfection in exchange for our sinfulness. If we gave him our sinfulness that he paid for on the cross, he would give us his perfection. Now this perfection is not in us, it's on us. Like the father's robe was on the prodigal son when he came home covered with pig. Can't say that word anymore. And he came home and the father covered him up. He was still a sinner underneath, but in God's eyes, he was perfect. He was forgiven.
With this idea of purity and the value of purity, how did you value purity when you were like my age, when you were growing up?
I didn't. Yeah, unfortunately. Purity, to me, now, is what your relationship to other people should be. male or female. You know, you should be pure in your motives, in your actions.
And so how, like, if I was to say, Richie, if you could give one piece of advice along the lines of purity to someone like in my generation, in this culture, what would you tell them?
I would say purity is that measures the depth of your relationship with anybody else. They can trust you and never have any doubts about your motives. And that's the most important thing, really.
Is there any final things that you want to add along the lines of purity?
The Bible says we should walk in Jesus' steps, and that's what we must do. Be as pure as he is. Be like he is.
Thanks so much, Richie, for sharing along the value of purity. Thank you so much for, even though you say you don't value purity throughout your life, and from the stories that I've heard from you, you do value it. And thank you so much for inspiring us to value it as well. Thank you for being part of our community and inspiring the younger generation in such amazing ways. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just for sharing, for those who don't know Richie, he's been around for a long time at Gracegate, and also a pastor, and I've learned so many great things from Richie since I've been here at Gracegate, but not only just through his wisdom and his knowledge, but just through the actions of how he welcomes people here at Gracegate and embraces them with a hug. And thank you so much, Richie and Rosemary. We love you guys, and we love having you as a part of our family here at Gracegate. So let's give him another hand for sharing. How are we all doing? Good? Have we had a good week? Yes. Are we excited about the value that we're going to be speaking about today? Yes? We've had 6 weeks of just going through all these values, and they've been great. I think when you come to the end of 6 weeks, we can start the series again, because you probably have forgotten everything we've spoken about, right? But Eliana reminded us today that she hasn't. And I hope that as we have gone through all these values in some way, shape, or form, that you'll be applying them and just seeing the value that we can gain in applying these and actually growing in our faith journey. So if you've missed out on some of them, I'm just going to recap quickly. We spoke about the value of fun, not taking life too seriously, and actually that God actually wants us to have a life of fun. Joy. We spoke a bit about the value of growth. And in having a valuable life, one of the things that we really need to make a strong point and a foundation in our life is a teachable spirit, and that we can always continually grow. Jordan spoke to us a bit about wisdom and how actually our decision making that we're making now can actually impact our future, and how we can learn to make wise choices now. And we spoke a bit about the value of integrity. Jamie reminded us this morning on how valuable that is, to live a life of integrity. Last week, we spoke a bit about the value of family, and how that, family, especially in the context of the church, is like how we extend our moral circle and sort of welcome everyone in. And today, I get the privilege of speaking about the value of purity. Now, I thought a bit about this, and I thought, I wonder who values purity. Is there anyone who sort of, goes through all your values, or you sit down and you're like, I really value family, wealth, growth, fun, but purity, I'm sure purity doesn't really make the list, right? I mean, if you think about it, no one really writes it down. Maybe there's one or two, but I don't think this is a value that sort of we put out there and we think, hey, I want to live a life that is pure. However, I want to try and show us today that I think all of us really, really value purity. And here's a definition of what purity is. This is from just dictionary.com. And it says purity is the condition or quality of being pure. All right? The condition or quality of being pure. Freedom from anything that debases, contaminates, pollutes, etc. Now, if you read that definition, surely you would value purity, right? I mean, there's most of us who would be like, yes, this is what we want. We want a conditional quality of being pure, freedom from anything that debases, that brings down the value, that contaminates, that pollutes, etc. And in order to help you maybe get on the same page as me, I've got a fun activity that we're going to do, all right? So I'm just going to show you a few pictures and give you some scenarios, and I want you to tell me if you're okay with it or if it sort of disgusts you a bit, all right? Can we do that? Okay, imagine with me, you're on a road trip and you really need to go, all right? So you pull over on the road and there's a local toilet, and you get to the toilet and you really need to go. You open the door and the toilet seat is just covered with some stuff, all right? Who's okay with that? Or who's a bit disgusted? Yeah, right? We're disgusted. Why? Because we want a clean toilet seat, especially if you have to have a number 2, right? I'm sure most of us, and I've seen this, I've experienced this, we've gone into those toilets and we're like, oh no, I can hold. I'll just hold. I'll just rather go in the bush. All right. So that's one scenario. And the reason is because it's dirty. All right. It's polluted. Next thing is, imagine if you're in a relationship and you want your fiance to get you a ring. Okay. How many of you are going to be okay with him not getting pure gold or just getting an imitation or a plastic diamond? How many are going to be okay with that? All right, yeah, got all the guys here. Okay, there's some, all right. Who's going to be a bit disgusted with that? Right, yeah, why? Because we want the pure, we want the genuine, we don't want something fake, all right? And it decreases the value. The value of it is so much more if it's the real thing. Imagine if you go to a restaurant, you've ordered a great meal, and you're devouring this meal, and all of a sudden, as you're devouring it, you've got this hair that's strung from your tooth to the plate, all right? How many of you are okay with that? All right? You need to see a counselor. No, all right? How many of you are disgusted with that? Yes, right? I mean, that's just disgusting. Like, it's contaminated. Most of the time, I guess we won't even finish the meal, all right? We've eaten it. Some of us might, but yeah, we won't. Another scenario, maybe we go to the shop, we buy a drink, and we see that half of it's empty, the seal's broken. How many of you are okay with that and you'll still drink it? Or, okay, there's one who's pretty disgusted, won't drink it. Yeah, because we want it to know that, the seal hasn't been broken. We want it to be pure. And yeah, it's polluted. So how about this? I want us to go a bit deeper today, all right? How about you have a partner, you have a spouse or a girlfriend, boyfriend, and you find out that they're cheating on you, all right? How many of you are okay with that, all right? Yeah. Most of us, we're pretty disgusted, right? And why? Why will we be disgusted? Because, something that is so pure and true and genuine, like we've been robbed, our trust has been broken when this happens, right? And so we can see how, yeah, man, we actually want a relationship that's pure, that's honest. How about if you go to the bank and you ask the bank, you want to put your money into the bank, and the bank says to you, hey, they're going to make sure that they look after your money but they can't guarantee it. They can only guarantee about 95% that your money is going to be okay in the bank. How many of you will be okay with that? All right. Most of us pretty disgusted, right? We're probably not going to go to that bank. Why? Because we want the genuine thing. We want it to be trusted. We want to make sure that we're not robbed and that the bank actually keeps our money, all right? Even though they may rob us a bit, And does this make sense? Can you see why actually probably each and every one of us really do value purity? And we really actually do want purity in our lives. And in order to understand this, I wanted to share with you a bit about the context and how this fits in the context of faith in church, in Jesus. And one of the most radical and I guess the craziest things that I always think about when it comes to Jesus is the way he sees purity and the way he actually sees people. Now, I want to pick it up straight away in a story where Jesus has actually just called his disciples. And he's getting guys to follow him. He approaches Matthew or Levi, who is a tax collector, all right? In that culture, in that time, a tax collector would be someone who is completely impure, someone who is unclean, someone who is contaminated, polluted. Hey, we shouldn't be around these people. Jesus approaches him and says, hey, I want you to follow me. I want you to be in my team. I want you to be my friend. Not only that, but he goes a step further, and then he actually goes to Matthew's house, and they throw a party later on. In Matthew, we pick up the story, and it says, well, Jesus was having dinner at Matthew's house. Many tax collectors and sinners came and ate with him and his disciples. This was just who Jesus was, all right? He was around people who were impure, if you had to call it. He was around the worst of the worst, the tax collectors and the sinners, the people who weren't, making sure that they were making all the wise choices in their life. This is who Jesus spent most of his time with. And so at this party, the Pharisees, the religious leaders at that time, this is what happens. When the Pharisees saw this, they asked his disciples, why does your teacher eat with tax collectors and sinners? In other words, this is so foreign in the context of faith, and especially to them in religion. He's like, why does your teacher, your rabbi, why does he go and hang out with people who are impure? Right? They contaminated, they're like polluted. Like, how is this even possible? Why does he do this? Jesus overhears them speaking, and this is what he says. He says, it is not the healthy who need a doctor, but the sick. Jesus says, hey, the reason I've come is not for the healthy, but it's for those who are sick. And when you think about this, you have to realize that, hey, I think the Pharisees were probably the worst of the worst, yeah, right? That they were really sick. And it goes on, and he says this, but go and learn what this means. And I like how he says, go and learn what this means. In other words, like this is going to be a teaching thing. This is something that I really think we have to digest, and we can't just understand straight away. But he says, I desire mercy, not sacrifice. All right? Jesus desires mercy. The Pharisees were desiring sacrifice. And he says, for I have not come to call the righteous, but sinners. Here Jesus gives us this tension, and he says, hey, if you want to understand like why I'm here and what I'm all about, it's about people, and I'm actually come here for the sick. I've come for those who are struggling in life, who aren't getting it right all the time. And to the religious leaders, those people would be those who are contaminated, those people who are really like, we want to actually move away from. Now, in order to understand exactly what's going on here, I want to try and help us with a few experiments. And I want to help us by actually understanding the psychology of disgust, all right? In other words, like, where does that emotion come from? Why are we disgusted when we went through all these illustrations? Why are we disgusted by it? What does it actually do to our thinking and to our mind when we think about these things? So what I want to do is I want to do a few experiments, and these aren't my own experiments. These are experiments that actually disgust researchers actually do, all right? And to try and illustrate and help us understand this emotion of disgust. So I need 3 volunteers. Don't worry, I won't embarrass you. You can sit in your seat. Do we have any volunteers? Yeah? Okay. Got one, yeah? Yeah? Here's one. Okay. Thanks. You guys can just sit in your seat. Okay. To start off, you got to be brave if you're volunteering for a disgust demo, hey? So good job on them. All right, all of us can play along. To start off with, what I want you to do is I want you to bring your attention to your saliva and your spit in your mouth, and I want you to just swallow it quickly. Okay? swallow it. All of us can do that. Okay, nothing too crazy about that. Maybe some of you are thinking, oh, it's a bit weird just because you're thinking about it now. But now those volunteers, what I want you to do is, can you spit into that cup for me? All right? All right? Just looking at some people's reactions already, there's a bit of disgust in the room, right? There's a bit of disgust. There's a bit of like uneasiness, all right? And now what I'd like you to do is, if you can just drink it again, all right? Can you do that? Isn't that weird, right? No one did it. Jamie didn't even spit in the cup, all right? Why is that? It's pretty much the same thing. It's okay when it's in our mouth and we just swallow, but when there's a physical difference and it actually comes out, and it's a small physical difference, all right? This emotion of disgust comes out. We repulse ourselves. We're like, oh, that's gross. It's weird, right? And the biggest thing that they say is that actually it might just be a small physical difference, but the psychological difference is massive, right? We have this huge shift in our mind. And what actually happens is we start to create these boundaries, all right? These boundaries where this is disgusting now to us, and we like repulse ourselves. We're like, oh, that's gross. Oh, no, I can't do that. Some of us couldn't even spit into the cup or even drink it back, which is really weird. But understand this in the context of Jesus and these Pharisees. You see, what Jesus was doing is he was moving towards people who the Pharisees were actually disgusted by. And this is actually, creating these boundaries is actually a healthy thing when it comes to food, right? Especially if the food is rotten. Because if we've eaten rotten food, guess what happens straight away? We expel it, right? It comes out. And that's actually healthy for us, because then we don't get that sick, right? We don't suffer from food poisoning. However, when we think about this and creating these boundaries in the context of our morality and our purity, we get things wrong. And this is what happens, and what the Pharisees were doing. They were, to gain purity, we need to expel the disgust. In other words, the Pharisees thought like, hey, in order to be pure, what we need to do is we need to make sure that all those people who are not pure move away from us. We expel them. They're actually not close to us, all right, because we're afraid of actually getting sick by them. We create these boundaries. Now, the next thing that they speak about is this negativity dominance, all right? And we're only getting started this morning, so I hope you're okay with this. But I really want to help you understand what's going on here in our thoughts. And I have to put these gloves on, because this might freak out a few people this morning. But that's okay, because I want you to understand what we do. So the thing that they share about in this negativity dominance, in the psychology of disgust, is they say, okay, who would eat this apple? Pretty much all of us. There's nothing wrong with it, can guarantee you that. Just got it from the fruit bowl yesterday. But now what they do is, I've got something really interesting in this bag. And this is a gift that our dog Maple left on our lawn, all right? And I'm not even joking. This is, as Richie didn't say the word, but I'm going to say it, this is a piece of dog poo, all right? And I want you to understand this. So in negativity dominance, what happens is, how many of you would eat this apple? Yeah, we'd all eat it, all right? How about, as soon as I take this dog poo and I sort of smear it on the apple now, who's going to eat that? Anyone? No volunteers now? Okay, I can even smell it now. There, I just wiped it off. Who would eat it now? No, why? Because why? Because it's polluted, it's contaminated, right? Now, what's fascinating about this is the contamination lies on what? The apple, right? Hang on, let me ask you. How many of you would maybe eat the poo because the apples touched it? Would anyone? No, but that's what happens in negativity dominance, all right? Let me just make sure I get this all in here. Woo! Close one. What happens is that the power lies in only one way. The power only lies in one way, and you've experienced this in some way. Maybe some people have said to you, hey, you shouldn't hang out with those people because guess what's going to happen? You're going to get polluted, right? You're going to change. Now, what's fascinating about Jesus in this context is he moves towards people who are impure, all right? And what the Pharisees are thinking is they saying like, hey, how can he hang out with them? Because they're going to all get contaminated, right? He's going to get contaminated. Never, ever do they think that Jesus would be able to actually change all of them. And that's exactly what he does. But this is the thing with negativity dominance, is to gain purity, we cannot be in contact or proximity with the contaminated. And this is where the church is messed up often. Where we've said, you know what? In order to make sure that I'm pure, I cannot be around people who are impure. Let alone we hide all the stuff that we're actually going through. Because in our hearts, in each of our hearts, there's probably a space, there's a crevice where we're struggling with sin. Now, what's fascinating about Jesus is he flips culture completely. He flips the understanding of the religious leaders when he does this. And he shows them that, hey, actually, what I want to show you is I'm not scared about getting in contact with people who are impure. I'm not scared of being in proximity with people who are impure. I'm not expelled by that. I'm not going to chase people like that away. Some of us have a mindset of God like that. That we think God is a God expecting us to be pure before we can actually come towards him. But he actually shows us that no, he comes towards people. He doesn't dehumanize people based upon their behaviors. He values people based upon who we are. Now, the fascinating thing about this and what I want to share with you today is the story where Jesus actually practically does this. He's busy teaching, and as he's teaching, something crazy happens. And I want you to just follow along with this story. It's found in John chapter 8. It says, Jesus returned to the Mount of Olives, but early the next morning, he was back again at the temple, all right? A crowd soon gathered, and he sat down and he taught them. Here, Jesus, this is something that was really common to him. He'd sit down with people, and he'd just be teaching. He'd just be teaching and sharing about the kingdom of God, how it is, what it means to actually follow God, what it means to actually be a Jesus follower. So he's got a massive crowd around him. He's busy teaching, and this is what happens. As he was speaking, the teachers of the religious law and the Pharisees brought a woman who had been caught in the act of adultery. They put her in front of the crowd. Now, just understand this quickly. How crazy is this? In this story, we see that the religious leaders and teachers, all right, they find someone who is caught in adultery, and guess what they do with that person who's caught in adultery? They bring that person and they bring shame on them in front of a massive crowd. How wrong is that? But the Pharisees, in their context, they're thinking that they're actually doing the right thing. And it says here, the Pharisees brought a woman who had been caught in the act of adultery. They put her in front of the crowd. And the next one, and then they say, teacher, they said to Jesus, this woman was caught in the act of adultery, and the law of Moses says to stone her. What do you say? Yeah, they bring this woman, and they are so missing the point of what faith is all about. They bring this woman in front of Jesus, and they say, hey, this is what the law of Moses actually said. It said, hey, if someone is caught in adultery, guess what we got to do? We got to actually stone them. We got to kill them. How crazy is that? That's pretty crazy. That's pretty radical, right? But how often don't we do the same? How often are we not the ones holding the stones in our hands? And when someone has failed in some way, shape, or form, done something that is a bit immoral to what we think, guess what the first thing is we're doing? We're expelling. We're trying to move away. Don't want to get contaminated or polluted. Maybe we're gossiping. We've got the stone in our hand and we're pointing a finger and like, well, at least I'm not like her. This is the Pharisees who bring this woman, right? I mean, that alone is so wrong. So Jesus knows they're trying to actually trap him. And they were trying to trap him into saying something they could use against him. But I love this. I love Jesus' response here. But Jesus stooped down and he wrote in the dust with his finger. I love this. Jesus, when he's in this situation, trying to be trapped about what is right and what's wrong, what's pure and what's impure, he gets in this situation with the woman who's probably only half clothed, so much shame, crying probably her eyes out, broken, and guess what Jesus does? He stoops down to her level. He stoops down to her level. And I love this because if you think that, the way to get to God is to measure up and make sure that you're perfect and get everything right, this is not the way God approaches humanity. Because Jesus, when she is at her weakest point, when she is broken, he moves in. He lowers himself. He stoops down. And he starts writing in the sand. And this is a debated thing, like we don't even know what he writes in the sand. We don't know. It's argued, over and over again what it could be. Maybe it's actually the sins of all those people, all those Pharisees. Maybe it's, hey, it takes one to know one. Who knows what Jesus was writing in the sand there. But as he does this, they kept demanding an answer. So he stood up again and he said, all right, you guys want an answer? He says, but let the one who has never sinned throw the first stone. It's like, whoa, if you haven't sinned, all right, you throw the first stone. Jesus, what he does here is he just gets everyone on the same page and he just says, hey, everyone is in need of God's grace. Everyone has fallen short of God's glory. Every single human being. There isn't this is so bad and this isn't that bad. Like, hey, you've sinned. You're all fallen short of God's glory. And so what happens next is amazing. Is because he then stoops down again and he writes in the dust again. He just gets down and he writes in the dust. Don't know what he writes. And when the accusers heard this, they slipped away one by one. What cowards, right? Okay, we want to try and catch this woman out, bring her shame. And Jesus just raises the standard and sort of says, hey, you've all missed it. The religious people, you've missed it. And all of a sudden, they start one by one slipping away, beginning with the oldest until only Jesus was left in the middle of the crowd with the woman. The accusers are gone. Jesus is there with the woman, still stooped down, crowd around him. And then this is what he says. He says, then Jesus stood up again and he said to the woman, where are your accusers? Where are your accusers? Where are those who are pointing the finger and saying, you impure? Where are they? Didn't even one of them condemn you? Maybe for the first time she looks up. So for the first time she hears truth. Not believing all those false lies that she keeps on believing. And then she says, no, Lord, she said. And Jesus said, neither do I. This is amazing what happens here. Jesus gets in proximity of a sinner. Has she fallen short? Yes, she's fallen short. But he gets in proximity of her and he lets everyone understand that no one is perfect. No one can gain purity through their own strength. If you can, then you throw the first stone. No one can throw the first stone because we all struggle in life. We all have a defect in our heart. And then Jesus says, and guess what? No one's condemning you because of that, because we understand we're all in the same boat. And he says, hey, neither do I. I'm your Savior. I'm the God who actually redeems you. I'm actually bringing you so much grace into your life. Neither do I. And I can just imagine for the first time in her life, she feels worth. She experiences healing. She experiences grace for what she shouldn't actually deserve. She sees herself as not contaminated or polluted for the first time. And then Jesus instructs her and he says, hey, go and sin no more. Go and sin no more. And when I thought about this week, this saying, I thought, oh, yeah, man, like just stop sinning, hey? It's pretty easy. Just, stop sinning. Like, I mean, that's pretty easy, right? I mean, no, it's not. Not through our own strength. I don't know about you, but, the things I don't want to do, I keep doing. Hey, don't be angry and I'm angry. Yeah, Jesus says, go and sin no more. Okay, but Jesus, how? Like how? This is the problem. This is the tension. Jesus gives the grace, accepts her just as she is, and then gives the truth and says, hey, go and sin no more. And I love it because the story goes on. Straight away, Jesus answers this. In front of the crowd, he keeps teaching. And he says this. He says, I am the light of the world. I am the light of the world. If you follow me, you won't have to walk in darkness because you will have the light that leads to life. This is gigantic. When Jesus says, go and sin no more, what he's saying is, I want you to turn around. I want you to abandon what you've been following, what's destroying you, what's contaminating you. I want you to have a valuable life. And the only way you can do that is by following me, just step by step, day by day. Just follow me. Understand who I am. Just follow me. You see, some of us think that purity is a destination, but purity is a process. It's a process of the Holy Spirit working in our lives as we get closer and closer to God. And the awesome thing about it is that God moved first and gets in proximity with our mess, with all the stuff that we try to hide away, the stuff that's hurting us. He gets in there. And he says, hey, I value you. Now follow me. I've got a better option for your life. So today I want to ask this question. Where are you in the story today? Not who are you in the story, because we know who you are based on what God says you are. But where are you? Where are you navigating at this current time? Maybe you're at that space of the adulterer today. Maybe that's something you're struggling with. Maybe it's pornography. Maybe it's sexual immorality. Maybe it's all these things that you think, hey, this is going to fill me up. This is going to bring me so much goodness in my life, but it's contaminating you. It's polluting you. It's destroying you. Maybe it's an addiction. Maybe it's pride. Maybe it's your greed. Maybe it's your anger. Whatever it is, where are you in the story today? And wherever you are, see how Jesus speaks to that. See how he moves towards that and wants to bring healing and wholeness. Maybe today you're not like the adulterer woman. Maybe you're on the other side. You're the Pharisee. Maybe you're just looking at everyone else and thinking, hey, I'm not like that person. I'm not like that person, so I think I'm pretty okay. Well, actually, what Jesus is trying to illustrate is, hey, I want you to search deeper, all right? There's places in your heart that I really want to get to that can really bring a breakthrough in your life. Where are you in your faith journey? Where are you today? And wherever you are today, I want you to know that because of who Jesus is, because of him walking up a hill and saying, hey, I'm going to surrender my life. I'm going to become contaminated and polluted and impure. And because I'm going to die a death and be resurrected from the grave, you have the freedom to walk a life of purity. That's what he did for us. And today, maybe you still have a mindset of a God who is looking down on you because of your behavior. He's not. He stoops down to see you eye to eye and want to raise you up and say, hey, come follow me. I've got something better for you. Today, we're going to end with something that I think is quite significant and quite meaningful. And when Jesus was with his disciples at one time, all his disciples are around, and he does something as a symbol of him again just cleansing us, him again actually having to change us. And what he does is he goes around and he washes all the disciples' feet, which is crazy enough that God would serve us. But he does that, and after he's done that, he says, hey, what I want you to also do is I'm going away. And when I'm not around anymore, I want you to actually to eat bread and to drink grape juice as a reminder of the life that I have given up for you. He says, I want you to drink this grape juice as a reminder of the blood that has been shed for your sins, for your mess. And I want you to drink that, and when you drink it, I want you to just remember the grace and the truth that I've poured out for your life. And he says, hey, I want you to eat this bread, and I want you to eat this bread as a reminder of my body that has been broken for you. And that's the way you get into relationship with God. He moves. So today we're going to partake in communion, and maybe you've never done this before in your life. But yeah, at Gracegate, we believe that just like Jesus, everyone's welcome. He values you. And today, if you want to actually, maybe you've seen God in a way today for the first time, him moving towards you. This could be your response, how you move towards God and just say, hey, God, you know where I'm at today. And I want to just partake in this just as a reminder that I'm trusting, I'm putting my faith in you today. So we're going to get Mercedes to sing us a song. And maybe just in your own time, come up and you can take a piece of bread and some grape juice, and then just go and sit down and just have a quiet moment with God. Just speak your heart. Allow God to reveal what he wants to reveal to you, and just open up to him. Today, God, we're so grateful for your grace and your truth that transforms, God. Thank you for your acceptance. Thank you that you move towards us, God. Thank you that you never give up on us, no matter what we've done. Thank you, God, that you are concerned about us living a valuable life. And God, today, as we just take a moment to remember the sacrifice that you have made for us, God, I pray that you'll speak to our deepest corners of our heart, God. The places where the enemy is trying to steal and destroy and take away. I pray that today can be a day as a fresh start, God, where we can take communion and just remember the grace that you have given to each and every one of us, God. So speak to us now is our prayer.